John Bacon, who advocated a lot of the ideology of Francis Bacon, he played the part of not only just like say John Lackluster or Harold Godwinson or King John of Kingsbridge Circus, etc., etc. He also played the part of of a Baptist. And what you had is he took the teachings of, say, Francis Bacon's The New Atlantis. When Francis Bacon talks about the Jew and Solomon's house and there being a porch of Solomon and the predators and how they will have experiment houses and a Solomon's house. Well, this is how you get the link up between Gabby Dixon and John Bacon and the Gaffer and the Gopher, representing House of Saxe-Coburg Gotha, or representing House of Hildesberghausen of the Harold Hill era. And then you get the House of Solomon, and that'd be like what they believed my mother's house to be. As they trespassed at the house, porch of Solomon. They thought my arse was the porch of Solomon, but they could porch on a regular basis. So his gaffer was playing part of the Baptist, and Salomon's the woman that beheaded John the Baptist. She brings his head out on a platter. But with the gaffer, he wasn't going to be having my mother behead him. Like it's in like with the story of John the Baptist and Solomon, with the Solomon's house and the porch of Solomon practices. He was gonna it was my head that was going to be served up on a plate as they plait it off with one another, the Bacons and the Dixons. So this was like what was going on over in Essex with with John Bacon, who was advocating all of the Baconian eugenics Nazi ideology, well, not so much Nazi, but would be adapted in centuries to come, the ideology of Francis Bacon. And in the New Atlantis, they talk about there being a Solomon's house, the experiment houses, and the Solomon's house, and a porch of Solomon. And that's basically just his way of saying that you're nothing other than a bunch of Jews, and I'm going to come to your house, and I'm going to torture your kid, and I'm going to torture your mother, I'm going to torture all of you, and that's how it worked with them, you know. I'm trying to think of where I was going with this, because I was saying the Seal of Solomon, isn't it? The Seal of Solomon. Which brings me on to another thing that I could mention right now, but I'm not going to. That involves the Seal of Muhammad, hitched to the Seal of Solomon. So say like the gaffer feeding kids bowls of lamb stew that have been ritually laced with a hashish to hush them up and dope them up, drug them up. And the God, Lamb of God, Angus Day and the Lamb of God. They had all these different narratives all hitched up with one another. With the Seal of Solomon, Solomon's porch. I don't know why I've made this video. It's just to remind myself of something at a later date to mention. The mystery men and those that we call the predators. That's what Francis Bacon says in the New Atlantis. We have these the mysteries that he says the mystery men and these that we call the predators who partake in the experiments. That was the gaffer when he'd send the police to my family home on a regular basis to cause problems, or little groups of juvenile Freemasonry neo-Nazis that he had recruited, conscripted to his perverted exploits in the community. Well, anyway,